Hey everybody, today I want to talk a little bit about early coinage and money in general, fair trade, equal value, this type of thing, where our dollar is now, how it got here. And this is the 100 greatest ancient coins from Harlan J. Burke. And right here we're looking at the first bimetal monetary system, and I'm going to touch at the beginning of money, but I just want to read a couple things from this. So Croesus was the king of Lydia from 560 to 546 BC when he was defeated by King Darius I of Persia the first. He must have been an exceptional individual since the Persians kept him as puppet king after his defeat. Evidently, Croesus did not have the ego of his predecessors, such as Alyattes II, because unlike them, Croesus never placed his name on his coinage. When Croesus reigned, coinage was a relatively new invention, probably less than 100 years old. Until this time, coinage had been made from a natural mixture of gold and silver known as electrum. Croesus not only was the first to use pure gold and silver, but he created a complex, interrelated bimetallic monetary system. So this is kind of the first bimetallic monetary system, where you have a stater. I'll just keep reading here a little bit. Silver and gold traded at a rate of 13 to 1. At the top of the coinage system was a gold and silver staters of 10 plus grams, a little over 10 grams. Therefore, 13 silver staters equaled 1 gold stater. And the coinage went all the way down to 0.40 of grams, under a half a gram. From 560 to 546 BC was when this Croesus was king and set up this bimetallic standard. And it says there that he was only reigning during the first 100 years or so of coinage being coined, and money being minted into these round coins. And that those were electrum, mostly electrum, the others. And he turned that idea and took it into a bimetallic monetary system. And so that's would be, you're talking 650 BC to 700 BC, somewhere in there was the first coinage. More like, I think people would say 550 or 650 BC was about the earliest, right in there. And so that would be the beginning of our coinage. For me also, before that, if we take a look at, let me share my screen. Okay, so if we come over here to Genesis 23, verse 15, and this is when Abram was leaving his family and just taking off. This is before the Israelites were captive under the Egyptians. And this is kind of the first mention of money, biblically, at least that I seen. And it's talking about silver as money. And it says, "My Lord, hearken unto me, the land is worth 400 shekels of silver." So they're looking for the value. What is that betwixt me and thee? Bury therefore thy dead. And Abraham hearkened unto Ephraim, and Abraham weighed to Ephron the silver which he had named in the audience of the sons of Heth, 400 shekels of silver, current money with the merchant. Money is italicized there. It's not in the original, but it's obviously the meaning there. He weighs out an amount of silver for the merchant to buy the land to bury his wife in. So that's the first mention of money, and that's silver's already being used as money. And why is silver used as money? It's because it's the most liquid commodity, is that saying all it says. It's because it's just what everyone is willing to trade at a certain ratio for that thing, and therefore that it just gold and silver became money just naturally, just automatically. It's the best thing for it. That's why it is money, is because it just is, just kind of naturally. And we're going to get a little bit into that about natural money and natural law. So if we look at electrum coin, so this is a mixture of gold and silver. And again, they're having this in at 521 to 478 BC. So this is a mixture of gold and silver. So that's the electrum that they were talking about. So some of the first money was a mix of gold and silver, and there's different arguments going back and forth. Well, why was it gold and silver? Maybe it just naturally came out of the ground at that ratio mixed together, and they just melted it down, and that was what they used. But now it's more thought that they were actually debasing the money. And I don't know, I had the thought too, maybe they were just didn't want the differentiation and people to consider one more valuable than the other, and they just mixed it together and said let it meet in the middle. But then they started devaluing it more and more over time. That's kind of the theory now, is that they devalued. It was kind of the first devaluing of money. They started off with a heavier gold, and they started mixing it with silver to debase it. So that's the electrum coin example, and I showed you the King Croetius bimonetary standard there of the gold and the silver. And so that bimonetaries, from then on, I'm going to jump back over here to lot 61. This is kind of ancient Greek silver coinage that I like to collect. And so right here, for example, you have a Calabria of Tarentum for the year 344 to 334 BC. Somewhere in that time, this coin was minted. And so that's kind of early Greek coinage. And then as you proceed through, you go through time a little bit, and you end up getting into Roman coins. And then you get Roman, pre-Roman, like right here, we're still in just early BC, 146 BC. But before long, we will cross over into AD. Okay, so now we're at a crossover where we're 27 BC to 1480. Now we're getting into Roman 80 coins, but we're still pretty good silver. Now from here on, most of you guys know about the Roman debasement of currency, but that's when they had, up into this time, you had all that pure silver and gold coinage, and now we're up to the 80s, and we have still pure silver and gold coinage with now copper. But soon they start debasing their silver in these Roman times with copper, and it just gets worse and worse till it's just kind of a silver wash. that's on the coins. So, and to me, the art just drops off of a cliff. I'm not as much into the Roman stuff here, but definitely if you are a history buff, it makes it a lot more intriguing. And when you learn about them, they become more interesting. But the art is just not there. And but you can definitely see the debasement of the coin over time. And just gets to be like, this is a good example. There's probably a little bit of silver on this left, but it's, you know, flaked off to show its copper core. But anyway, then Rome falls, and then you have here we go. So then we have Byzantine after the Rome kind of falls, you know, the capital moves to Constantinople, and they kind of hold a gold standard for quite a while. And so then you have, you know, the medieval, where you have, you know, a lot of copper being used in small, thin silver coins. But all throughout history, we've had gold and silver as money. After this Byzantine area here, you get into, you know, the Spanish real and that time frame up into the taler, which comes over and becomes the dollar, which we will talk about here. So yeah, there's been a silver standard all that time. And I was going to show you a little clip here of Alistair. Let me go over here. Okay, here we have Alistair MacLeod on commodity culture.
That silver is demonetized, you know, basically is rubbing up against common law. Common law based on Roman law, money, if you like, without counterparty risk, was gold, silver, and copper. I mean, you know, it's as simple as that. Now, obviously, we think in terms of gold. Silver is not priced as a money.
Okay, and then I'm going to jump to, so he talks about bumping up against common law. I'm going to jump to 24.
Of Congress. It's still true today. And this is actually based on Roman law, which goes all the way back to the 12 tables in 450 BC.
So it goes all the way back to the 12 tables in 450 BC. So that's just after, you know, the first bi-monetary system has been created 100 years after that. They're already talking about that being, you know, natural money.
Formalized by jurors over the next 1,000 years, and then crystallized in Justinian's pandemics, and also the Basilica for the Eastern European Empire, and that was about 900 and something AD.
So then he talks about that up to 900 AD, and then we know that we had the Spanish money, silver trading after that, and silver has been money naturally for a long time. Okay, so if we go from the 1500s to 1792 here in the States is when we formed our dollar, and you heard about the taler coming over from England and becoming the dollar. And in 1792 we have this Coinage Act, and in the Coinage Act it says that our dollar, the act stipulated that the silver dollars must contain 371.25 grains, 24.1 grams of pure silver. So that also came out to 0.7734375 troy ounces of silver. So that's what our actual dollar is founded on. It's a weight of silver in grains. And I want to clarify a few things about the dollar. I was talking, and I'm kind of generalizing and jumping from, our original forms of money and how it got started all the way to Nixon taking us off of the gold standard, with that's between countries, or if another country could bring their paper dollars and trade them for gold. And that's when Nixon closed the gold window. We'll talk about that in a bit, but I did want to jump a dollar. And it was also a weight of gold too, a tiny weight of gold. It was $1. So it was a weight of precious metal. And that's when we had our silver dollars. This is a reverse proof. This is a modern coin with that is a reverse proof finish. But this would have been, focus is not doing it for me. This is an example of the old Morgan dollar, except it's made out of pure 3/9 fine silver. The original dollars were 90%, but originally we know that it was supposed to be defined as that amount of weight in silver grains. But anyway, then we trade with silver dollars for a while, Morgan dollars for a while, and then of course, the further along we get, the same thing that happens with our silver dollars. We start getting paper money issued to us, and so that we wouldn't have to carry around our silver, we could just get this receipt for our silver that was kept at the bank vault where it's safe, and we could bring in this certificate anytime we wanted to the bank, the silver certificate, and get our actual silver dollar out of the bank if needed. And then I found this site I wanted to point out I thought was kind of interesting. Let me share this. So this says that This says that in March 1964, Secretary of the Treasury Douglas Dillon stopped the issue of coins, and for the next four years, certificates were redeemable for silver granules. So we all know that they took the silver out of our coinage in 1964. So 1964 and prior change had 90% silver in it. And in 1964, the Secretary of Treasury, guy in charge of our money, said it's too expensive for us to have our money that have this much value. So they took us off of the silver standard. But we could take these silver certificates in and get them redeemed for silver granules up until 1968. But it also says down here that in 1957 was the last year that they issued a silver certificate. So from the silver certificate, we went to a Federal Reserve note. So the people were taken off of the silver standard at this time, and prior to that, in 33, they confiscated kind of the citizens, not confiscated, I shouldn't say that. They took away the redeemability of the gold. In 1933, of course, we were using gold coins up to that point, and these bills that you could take in and redeem you could get a $20 gold piece. I wish I had one of those for an example, but I don't. But they're pretty common. You can look up a pre-33 double eagle and see that it was a $20 gold eagle, and this is a $20 gold note, and in gold coin payable to the bearer on demand. So I could have taken this in prior to 1933 and got my gold coin, or just used gold coins to pay, or I could pay with this as well. Again, it was kind of, it was backed by gold. It was as good as gold. You could get gold, $20 gold piece for this $20 bill. That's what gave the paper its money. But so first the gold window was closed, or the gold as money was taken away in 1933. So once these were no longer redeemable for gold, then we still had our silver up until 1964. And then after 1964, they took the silver out of the coinage, and we had up to 1968 to turn these silver certificates in which they would give us grains of silver, I guess. So, and then that ended. And so there was no more tie to silver or gold, officially, government speaking. We went on what's known as a fiat standard. So that's where we jumped to Nixon. Even though we, the people, were off of the gold standard, the government was still on the gold standard per the Bretton Woods Agreement, where all the countries agreed that they could exchange their dollar if needed for gold. And that stood until Nixon closed the gold window, which we're going to get to here. Arcadia Economics has a little clip of Nixon talking about taking us off the gold window, or shutting the gold window to other countries to trade with us. They get up into that point, they could take their gold paper note and trade it in for gold from our vaults. And France was doing that. I think it was France anyway, was doing that. And they were worried more and more people would keep doing that. And so they decided to close the gold window. Here is Nixon talking about that.
Directed the Secretary of the Treasury to take the action necessary to defend the dollar against the speculators. I have directed Secretary Connally to suspend temporarily the convertibility of the dollar into gold or other reserve assets, except in amounts and conditions determined to be in the interest of monetary stability and in the best interest of the United States. Now, what is this action, which is very technical?
So he does this very technical action. It's supposed to only be temporary, which is funny because it's been quite a while since this has happened, and we're still on that temporary leave, I guess. And but I want to point out what it says over here.
Including the many responsible members of the international banking community who are dedicated to stability in the flow of trade, I give this assurance. The United States has always been and will continue to be a forward-looking and trustworthy trading partner.
So, yeah, he's worried that, because we're coming off of the reality of something real, a gold standard, that's what gave us our trustability, or a large share of it, in the Bretton Woods Agreement. And now he's come out and suddenly closing that window, that agreement. And he just says a little bit to those that might be worried, our trading partners, we want to let you know that we're going to be honest, good, forward-looking, above-book traders, not to worry. The dollar will still be strong. We won't do anything immoral. And then, so now I'm going to jump to another clip of 2008. Okay, so this is a little Frontline PBS official video, Money, Power, and Wall Street, Part 2, full documentary, at about 13:31 minutes. We'll hear what Hank Paulson here says. So he should be in charge of the money, per se.
But Treasury Secretary Henry Paulson thought Geithner's strategy might send a dangerous message. He started publicly reminding Wall Street of one of the most basic tenets of the free market: moral hazard.
I'm as aware as anyone is of moral hazard. I'm also aware.
So, moral hazard. So, Nixon saying, don't worry, we're going to be a forward-looking and honest trading partner. And now we have 2008, a period of time later. And not this is the first problem that we've had, but it's just, the Treasury Secretary is kind of coming out and saying, look, we can just print a bunch of money out of thin air and take care of the problem, but there's a moral hazard right there. Well, it's because you're no longer keeping honest books. If you just, if we come off the gold standard and we keep our contracts honest, then maybe we'll hang on to that value, because you have still honest equal trade and you're getting value for value. But when you suddenly come out and go not honest value for value, you just print a bunch of money out of thin air, and the only way that money is gaining any value is by robbing what value you have already. And that's the lie and the hole in our dollar. And since the 2008 bailout, when it became too big to fail. So once you become too big to fail, they've got their magic hat out again, and they're printing money out of thin air, and that's no longer keeping those honest trading partner books. And the only way that new printed money has value is by taking the existing value of the dollar you already have and taking a little bit out of all the money in existence. And that takes for a while to happen, but it shows up in the prices of goods and services when you go to purchase them. Your dollar doesn't have as much buying power because there's more of those dollars in existence. It's easier to get dollars than it is those goods and services. And the more, that they do that, the faster your inflation goes. And so we're getting away from reality, or the basis of something real, a real value, faster and faster. And that's why the price of gold and silver are going up and up. It's not that they're going up and up. It's that we're getting further and further away from reality of honest, good books. And when you get corrupt money being able to be printed at the top, and it has all of its power when it's first printed and then slowly loses it as it goes out, you end up with corruptions being more prevalent, because suddenly you have a surge of money that needs to be spent before it loses its value. And less, it's not hard work to earn. You're not planning on how to, you just suddenly get a bunch of it, and it gives you a lot of leverage to give you anything you want immediately, quickly. And that sometimes leads to corruption, if you can imagine. But and eventually to the pricing in the goods and services that everyone uses.